But I'm going to turn and talk about this next topic. Speaking of cleaning things out or maybe not cleaning things out, Unmasking and ObamaGate. Just today, or just yesterday rather, Attorney General Barr announced that with respect to the investigation that is ongoing inside the Justice Department and the FBI, the investigation of how did this whole Trump-Russia collusion hoax get started? How did we even get started with this crazy? And what was the genesis or the predicate, or in his words? And so he has Special U.S. Attorney John Durham looking into it, Attorney General Barr overseeing, big investigation, big news out recently, of course, that President Obama was completely in part of all of it, very well aware before even the first time that the FBI interrogated Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Obama's all over it. Big meeting in the White House on January 5th. I mean, Obama's in the middle of this, and everyone can see it. But Attorney General Barr announced yesterday, he first actually was quoted as saying that he did not think that either former President Obama or former Vice President Biden would be indicted in this case. He's now saying they won't even be investigating. I mean, as he was clarifying his remarks, he said they won't even be investigated. So I wanted to spend a little time talking about that today. I know a lot of people, myself included, if you listen to my show all the time, I'm always talking about it. If you have the rule of law, it has to apply to everyone. You cannot make exceptions. You cannot say, well, rule of law, except of course the ruling elite, or except of course, if you're a particular political party, or if you're part of some, you can't say the rule of law doesn't really apply to certain people and still say have a rule of law at all. There are many people deeply disheartened by Attorney General Barr's words yesterday that saying, there probably won't be any investigation and certainly not an indictment of either President Obama or Vice President Biden, even though they were heavily in the middle of everything that the DOJ did to Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. So I'm with the idea all the way, the rule of law. I have to say, though, if that's going to be the case, I do hear people, even the conservative side, saying, we don't really want to start down the path in America of having a former president indicted and a former vice president indicted or investigated or all that, because that's kind of what banana republics do. That's kind of what these tin pot dictators do. That belongs in the KGB world, not in America. And so people say, you got to leave those two alone. I'm not sure I buy that, because I think, if you're talking about a minor violation of law where you didn't, fill out a form correctly, you didn't give adequate number of days notice of something, even a FARA violation. You can imagine some violations where you just say, yes, this past president did that, but it's not worth a prosecution. This was a coup attempt. What happened inside the DOJ and the FBI was a coup attempt, nothing less. The prosecution, the persecution of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was part of that effort, part of that persecution effort. It was part of the effort to destroy President Trump, part of the coup. It was one step along the way in the intended coup to take down President Trump. So the idea that Obama maybe wasn't the grand orchestrator, it appears that former CIA Director John Brennan was the grand orchestrator, but Obama's aware of it. He knew about it. He was in meetings where it was being discussed. He never said, hey, wait a minute, this is America. We don't do this. These are very troubling things. Having said all of that, if that's where we're going to be in this country, if Barr is going to say, look, we're just not going to go around investigating and prosecuting former presidents and former vice presidents, then the next step has to be, then the answer has to be at least that every single thing uncovered in this investigation by Special U.S. Attorney Durham, by Barr's investigation, by everything they're doing in Washington, every fact must come out. The American people may not be entitled to have the justice served prosecuting of Obama and Biden if indeed they violated federal law, but they do deserve all of the facts. They do deserve to know the whole story, the whole truth. They do deserve that. They deserve to know this was your political party. This is what the Democrats did. This is what Biden did. This is what Samantha Power did. This is what Comey and McCabe and the whole lineup of characters did. We're entitled to know all of that. And I really hope, despite this concern that, we're not ever saying, Barr is saying we're not going to investigate and indict the former president or the former vice president, I hope we can find the will to say, okay, maybe not that, but every single thing has to come out. And in the case with respect to President Obama, and the term has now been used, ObamaGate or Obama-Biden-Gate, when people roll their eyes at that, in fact, you're already hearing people on the left trying to say, oh, now we got the ObamaGate conspiracy, all these crazy conspiracy theories on the right, they're all to be ignored, they're all ridiculous. You need to be able, as a patriot, as a defender of this country, a defender of the right idea, the rule of law, and a defender against the abuse of the national intelligence agencies that happened under President Obama and his team in his term. You need to be able to understand what it means to say there was ObamaGate. You need to be able to say that, at least in some basic terms. More and more details will come out, but the idea of ObamaGate, the idea that without any predicate, without any basis at all, the Obama-run Justice Department, the Obama-run FBI, used a hoax dossier, the entirely concocted by Hillary Clinton's hired firm, Fusion GPS. So Hillary Clinton hires a smear manufacturing firm named Fusion GPS, hires them through her law firm, Perkins Coie. They hire Fusion GPS to come up with garbage to make up stuff about candidate Trump. They come up with a Russian dossier filled with lies and concoctions and conjectures. Nothing substantive, as the Inspector General report said, nothing in that report, that dossier, had an independent basis for verification, or nothing relevant, nothing salient in it had any justification. In fact, that cooking up of a false charge against President or candidate Trump, the use of that dossier to get FISA warrants to spy on American officials, Americans, under the guise of, we think maybe they're involved with the Russians, maybe there's some foreign influence here. That's why we have to use the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This was entirely a cooked up coup. That is the premise of ObamaGate, that what they did inside the FBI and the DOJ is nothing less than using lies they knew were lies to cook up first spying on Trump affiliates, Trump campaign affiliates, and then using that to cook up a 2.5-year, multi-million dollar investigation by Bob Mueller and his team, when everybody involved, all these FBI agents, it was like 42 or 24, 42, whatever it was, FBI agents full-time digging into this. All of them are trained enough to see what the heck was happening. They can see it's a cooked up ruse, a coup, and yet they dragged the country through it for years with the goal of undermining President Trump's agenda to restore America, to bring America back off the brink of leftism and back on course for being a country rooted in liberty, a country rooted in the ideas of America. This was a leftist attempt by the Hillary team, later the Fusion GPS and dossier, the Fusion GPS paid by the Democrat National Committee. All of that big picture must be considered of what ObamaGate is. Obamagate is not because he sat in one meeting on January 5th and maybe should have spoken up because people were telling him about all the spying they were doing. That's not Obamagate. It's the entire era of corruption that happened under the Obama presidency. You heard Fred Fleitz in the previous interview talking about it. The idea that the agencies were filled with leftists, by leftists in Washington, Obama and others, filling these agencies in careerist positions so you can't get rid of them, burrowing them into places where they are still pushing the left-wing agenda. And you can't, when President Trump comes along, you can't get rid of them. These are people who worked against the United States, worked against the voters of America, worked against the agenda the Americans chose in the 2016 elections, and they're still there doing it. Obamagate is a massive conspiracy to undermine the very identity of America, the very existence of America as a country rooted in the promises of the Declaration of Independence, the promises of the Constitution. It is an effort, it was an effort, an ongoing effort to undermine in any way possible a candidate who was going to dismantle all of the evil President Obama put forth in our country. So the unmasking stuff, the spreading around of the unmasking idea, the sharing, the more and more people, sharing the unmasking and what the names were and spreading it more broadly. This was all part of the massive complicity inherent in the Obama administration that says we're going to fight against somebody who dares to run for president, who is going to do something, anything opposite of the agenda of the radical left as was put in place under President Obama. Unmasking, Obamagate, it's all part of the big picture. We're going to destroy this guy who's daring to challenge the left-wing effort to take down this country that was the 8 years of the Obama presidency.